Hey there, my name is Heather Feather. I am the owner of Rare Bird Medicine, and today's topic is heard, seen, and hugged. I spent a lot of time thinking about all three of these things. Just rolling nuggets around up there all day long. One of the ways I consistently think of heard is I'm constantly asking Heather Feather, are you hearing the people that are speaking to you? My mind tends to run a lot, and I have a vast imagination and fantasy world that I can tap into at any point. I have alternate realms I can go to, being trained on the shamanic path, and just having been somebody that's always been a little ethereal and out of body anyhow. One of the things, though, that I really like to weigh and consider, it was a teaching that was brought to me about halfway through my life in my mid-20s, is am I really hearing people when they speak? And when I say hear, I mean not only listening to the words that they're saying and receiving them, rather than thinking about what I'm going to say, thinking about, oh, wow, that elicits this response in me. That's difficult for me. I'm a double fire sign. So there's a lot of things that people say to me. Air activates fire. When your wind comes at me and you share a thought with me, it's going to activate my fire and activate more ideas in me. So it's a pretty consistent practice for me to really step into being a generous listener, because not only does it mean that I need to drop all ideas and trust that whatever I need to say in response to whatever I'm hearing from another, I can pause and consider or come up with on the fly. I don't always have to be so sculpted in my response. I can be more raw, more authentic, more in the moment. So I've gotten really a lot better, because I've been practicing it for a long time, at kind of quieting my own mind and being able to receive other people. The challenge sometimes comes from keeping my attention there. Can I keep my attention with you? Are you an interesting storyteller? Is what you're talking about interesting? There are lots of things that are not interesting to me, and certain things that are extremely interesting and really garner my attention. And I think that you're deserving of my attention, whether we find the same topics interesting or not. So one of the things I'm kind of stewing in today is, am I hearing you? Are you hearing the people in your life? Are you hearing the words that are coming out of their mouths, or are you thinking of what you're going to say next? And if you are able to really be fully present with them and hear them and listen to them, do you stop listening if it's not interesting? Do you disengage the attention? Are you able to hold your attention? There's so much in the way our attention is commodified in the modern age, where we don't really, we're being trained, especially if you're on TikTok, you're being trained to not be able to keep your attention with something. And so I think it's a really good practice in the modern age to consistently practice, okay, I'm going to continue to give my undivided attention to this until it's my turn to speak, And there's another aspect of really hearing people, though, and a large portion of communication is body language, paying attention to their body language. Yeah, no, it was fine. It was, da-da-da. Was it really fine? Like, your arms are crossed. Is there any upset with it you want to talk about? Like, I'm here to really listen. I always want to dig and pull more out. I want to take what's in the shadow and bring it into the light. It's part of being a Scorpio cusp, Scorpio Mercury, Scorpio North Node. Let's pull the thing into the light, and let's get it. Let's really talk about it, And so are you willing to kind of go deeper to see what else is there? Are you listening emotionally? Are you using your EQ instead of your IQ, just your intellect to listen, but are you using your emotional intelligence to really listen, pay attention to body language, pay attention to tone, to cadence, to really be present with somebody? I find that most of humanity wants to be heard. And I'm somebody that, it's funny about that statement, is I don't really feel like I want to be heard. If I'm having a problem, I'm not going to call a friend typically. I'm typically going to process myself. I'm going to self-coach. I trust my own advice, and I know that I'll get there eventually, and I trust myself to get there. So I don't really have a tendency to call people. And that being said, it doesn't change the fact that when I'm speaking, I prefer to be heard. I'm not just blowing wind into the air, And so if I want to be heard, there's a great saying like, give what you came to get. If you want more friends, be friendlier, be more of a friend. How do you show up in the relationship to what's called friendship? If you want your family to receive you differently, receive your family differently. You know what I mean? Like, give what it is that you're asking others to give you. And you may find that you become a frequency match, and like attracts like in this realm. And so I really work to give the gift of hearing somebody, because it's a gift that I also enjoy. And it's a gift that I've experienced most humans enjoy, no matter how kind of private or introverted or singular they may be in their expression in life. Most people enjoy being heard when they're speaking. As far as being seen, do you really see the people in your life? It's a funny anomaly, but no matter how much you know someone, you will never fully see them. You'll never really totally know anyone. You may not even totally fully know yourself, you complex creature, you being of many faces, of 10,000 faces. There's so many different ways an entity can express, and so many things you have yet to express. And so another aspect of how I want to engage with others, aside from hearing them, is making sure that I see them to the best of my ability. And I find one of the greatest blinders that I have when it comes to seeing another person is when I place them in a box. When I go, you know what you are is you're like this. And when I take circumstances or intermittent responses and I decide that that's the matrix of a person, you've done this 3 times, therefore you are that. And humans are complex creatures, and we have the opportunity to constantly express. And we're being given more and more platforms in which to express in the modern age. And as we express, there are things that have come out of my mouth when I was a teenager, when I was 34, maybe even last week, and I might say it in a different way today because I'm in a different frame of reference, of perspective in this moment of now, or based on the influence of a conversation I received. And so one of the things I really like to evaluate, or have been evaluating in the past few months, is, do I really see people, and do I trust that people see me? My older brother, he's 6-7 years older, and because our dad drowned when we were children, he kind of took on the role of father brother. And he was kind of like he felt like he was told he had to be the man of the house at 7, and we were just babes. And so he just kind of took that role on to kind of like, okay, now I'm play the role of dad and little kid and brother, and I'm sure that was a lot of pressure that he felt. But in that, he's kind of taken that role with me in this life. And like, did you get your oil changed, Heather? No, I didn't. No, I absolutely did not. And as I've aged, through the years of my brother telling me, like, did you get your oil changed? I realized I had a conversation with him this year where I was like, do you still think I'm the type of person that doesn't get her oil changed? Like, do you have me in a box of being, like, do you understand that I'm nearly 50 and I know to get my oil changed now? Pretty usually. No, I'm much better with it. But like, can we trust that we're being seen? And if we're not being seen, how well are we really seeing others in our life? I constantly work to pull people out of the boxes I want to place them in. And it's most difficult. It is most challenging for the people you love most, for the people you feel closest to. I know them. They're like this. I've been with them for 24 years. I grew up with, I know. Oh, I know they're like this. Well, no, you don't. You've had some experiences in which you've seen them in a certain light. It doesn't mean it's the only light they have to shine. And there are many lights that they shine in the world that you may never see, just because you're not a frequency match to that offering that they give in the sea of life. And so, I'm thinking about this more and more. And I'm wanting to understand how I'm seen. A very powerful question you can ask anyone. I ask my boyfriend all the time, is there any way I can be a better girlfriend to you? But another, is there any way I can be a better sibling to you? Is there any way I can be a better XYZ to you, employee to you, whatever, owner of a business to you? It's good to evaluate how you're doing in your relationship. Let's check in. How are we doing? Heather doesn't do very well with friendship because I don't have a lot of interest in being on the phone. And I've isolated myself here in New Mexico, and I don't really want to be on the phone. So like, I don't, like, I've got people all over, but I just like, I don't, like if trust your life is going well, I don't know. I just like, don't, it's not a thing. So I'm not great at like, when it comes to friendship, the whole connection thing, because I trust if you need me, you'll call me, and I'm not going to call you. I'm going to be reading a book or working out or doing something, I'm always doing something. And so I do see areas where I could grow. One of the things I've been kind of flirting with as of late is to check in with people and ask them, how do you see me? What is your perception of me? Like, what do you perceive to be my biggest challenges or growth or evolution work? Now, you got to be ready to take a gut punch if you're going to ask a question like that, because if they're kind enough to be honest with you, you may be given some feedback that is painfully true. And if you really want to evolve, one of the coolest and quickest ways to figure out what your evolutionary work is to go to the two-leggeds that see you or think they do and ask them what it is they see. What is it you're reflecting back to the sea of life? What is it that you're offering? What is it that people are picking up that you are putting down? You know what I mean? Like, what are they grabbing off the shelf of you when they perceive the matrix of your being? And so, I'm meeting with my boyfriend tonight and plan on just asking him this question. And he's pretty good at being really candid, which I love about him. But I mean, he's given me some feedback and I'm like, what? Like, it's so foreign to how I perceive. He's like, you're scary. Like when I'm hungry, I've had this feedback, to be fair, from a beloved best friend of mine. And she said, like, when you need a snack, you really need a snack, Heather. But he was like, you're straight up scary. And I'm like, what? I'm scary? Like, I'm such a little lamb. What do you mean I'm like, I can't even perceive or like conceive of Heather being scary in any way. Like, I don't relate to myself. But then it's like, okay, well, I really need to check in, first of all, with my snacks and my meals and make sure they're happening and check in with my blood sugar levels being met. But second of all, I need to be aware of how it impacts people when I show up grouchy. I do have a big energy. So like grouchy may feel real aggressive from a Heather feather because her energy is really big. My energy field is large. And so like, fair enough, good feedback. I don't want to be scared. I'm not a horror movie, like, but it can be a bit of a nightmare when I need a snack. So fair enough. So, that's like kind of where I've been like, wow. But I'm going to ask him again tonight, like, how else do you see me? Are there any ways I can, improve? Are there any things you find challenging that I can grow on? Because I certainly want to do that. And then finally, like hugging, holding, touching. Now, there are many two-leggeds and many undiagnosed two-leggeds in the modern age because they're just now getting into like, oh, women can be autistic too. Women have neurodivergence. There are many neurodivergent individuals that do not want to be hugged. And there are many individuals who have had trauma that do not want to be hugged. So the first thing I want to say about hugs is I come from a very hugging family, a very loving family. Not everybody wants to be hugged. So it really is appropriate if you're going to hug someone to ask them, do you like hugs? Do you mind if I hug you? But I notice so many two-leggeds give the most disconnected hugs. I'd almost rather you tell me you don't want to hug than for me to give you a disconnected hug, which is where our bodies are miles apart and we're just barely touching and tapping. And it feels like super, I feel more disconnected after I hug some people here at our school. So the first thing I want to say is you have permission to say, like, I'm not a hugger, and you can say that as somebody's coming in to hug you. I'm sorry, I'm not a hugger. Can we like air a high five? I don't like a lot of touch. Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely. But if you're going to be a hugger, it's possible to put some love into it. If you hold someone for 20 seconds, your body releases oxytocin, which is the feeling of falling in love, which is something that many of us crave, is that feeling of love. And you can actually touch your genitals to another person's genitals without having sex with them because you have clothes on. And so when we hug, we act like our bodies shouldn't touch or we need to be so disconnected. And You're not going to accidentally have sex with someone because you hug them and your body's touched. It's actually quite powerful, the power of touch. There are infants that will die if they're not touched or held by a parent when they're born, so it's obviously part of our matrix and what we need. How are you doing with hearing, seeing, and being hugged today? You can always subscribe to Rare Bird Medicine on YouTube. Like and subscribe there. I'm Moon.